You think a living trust means that your estate plan is done? Well, not so fast. In this video, I'm going to talk you through 5 of the most common misunderstandings we see about living trusts so you can avoid confusion, protect your assets, and actually get the benefits that you expect. We've helped hundreds of clients who had a trust yet still ended up with probate problems, family disputes, or gaps in their plans. I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of the estate planning guys. At the end of the video, I'm going to share with you the most surprising myth we still hear in our consultations, and one that could cost your family time and money if it's left unchecked. So be sure to stay tuned. The first thing that we see as a big problem with estate planning is that people think that when you create a trust, it just means, hey, all the work is done. I don't have to worry about this anymore. I've checked the box. I can put this away. I don't have to think about it again. This is how I'd like us to process this situation. A living trust is a tool. It's not the entire project. And just like buying a toolbox doesn't build your deck on the back of your house, creating a trust doesn't finish your estate plan. And you'll understand why in just a second. But so many people create the trust and forget to transfer assets into it. And that's like leaving your car in the driveway with no engine. So the trust, I like to think of it as a red bucket. We create the trust and then we put the assets into the trust. And that's how we have a trust that can actually do the job when it's called upon. Now, if this already has you thinking, click the like button and hit subscribe because we have lots more content like this coming. We post up a video about once a week. Now, the second misunderstanding that we hear from folks is trusts avoid all taxes. So let me ask you a question. Have you heard someone say a living trust eliminates estate taxes? What I'm going to explain is probably not what you expect, but living trusts don't reduce your taxable estate unless they're paired with smart tax planning, like gifting strategies or advanced trusts. There are tax planning strategies within a living trust that we certainly want to utilize, but we can't think that that solves the whole problem. If you have a taxable estate and it's sizable, then there are probably going to be some other tools that we need to reach for. A revocable living trust is a powerful tool, and it can help you to utilize both spouses' estate tax exemption, which you frankly can do without a trust at this point. So the tax planning piece of a revocable living trust is not what's most important about it. What's most important about it is it allows you to avoid the very public, time-consuming, and expensive court process called probate that happens when you die if you have a will or a trust in place. Now, a living trust is a super powerful tool, but it's not a tax shelter on its own. It does help with estate tax planning, but if you have a large taxable estate, it's not the only tool that you need to have in your toolbox. The third misunderstanding that we have, people say, I have a will and a trust, so I'm covered. Now, stay with me on this for just the next minute or so. Many people have both, and they assume that they're protected. But if your will and your trust don't coordinate, then you could end up with contradictions or confusion about who gets what, when, and how. And this could be especially risky if, for example, your will names one executor and your trust names somebody else as the trustee, and they don't get along well, they can't collaborate. That could be a real problem. You want to make sure that you have a trust and a will and that they're properly coordinated together. And if you're working with a qualified estate planning attorney, they should make sure that that's all done right. So most of the time that wouldn't be something you need to worry about. You just want to double check. So if you have a revocable living trust, then you're going to need what's called a pour over will. So you're not going to have a traditional will. It's what's called a pour over will. In essence, what it says is, hey, if there's anything that's not in my red bucket, that's not in my trust, then I direct the executor to transfer that over to the trust so that the trustee can deal with it. And most of the time, the executor and the trustee are going to be the same person. There's not much point in having different folks serve in those two different roles because they need to collaborate and work together. So it's typically best to have the executor and the trustee be the same person. So that's how you can make sure that those two things are aligned. If you have a living trust, you want to have what's called a pour over will. Now, the fourth misunderstanding that we hear is, I don't need to update my trust. I've done it. It's a one and done. I can check the box. And the truth is that a trust is not set it and forget it. I think of a trust as kind of like an automobile in that it needs upkeep and maintenance. Now, that doesn't mean you have to deal with it every day. It doesn't even mean that you need to look at it, every 6 months or maybe even 12 months. So here's the deal. At least every 3 years, you should be sitting down to have a conversation with your estate planning attorney and probably your financial advisor as well to make sure that everything is up to date, that it reflects what your current wishes are, what your current status is, what your current family situation is. So at least every 3 years, and then if something major happens, so, if there's a birth or a death in your family or you get divorced, that's a time when you need to go back in and review the trust, perhaps do an overhaul at that point. So if you think about it, if your car breaks down, you're going to take it to the shop, right? So if any of these major life events happen, think of that as like a breakdown, and it's time to go make sure that your trust is up to date. So, life changes, marriages, births, asset shifts, we buy property, we sell property. And the other thing about it is the law changes. And, the law changes frequently. Estate planning law doesn't change that frequently, but it does change. And you'd be amazed how many people I've met with that have 10, 15, 20-year-old trusts that don't reflect their current wishes or out of date with current law and can create a real catastrophe if they're not updated. So make sure that you're meeting with your estate planning attorney, talking with your financial advisor about your estate plan at least every 3 years. Now, the fifth thing that I want you to understand that is often a misunderstanding that I hear from clients is that trusts keep everything private automatically. And this is interesting. Trusts are more private than wills, but privacy isn't automatic if your trust isn't fully funded or your backup plan is unclear. Some assets could still wind up in probate, which is public. So remember, we create the red bucket and then we got to put the assets into it. So if we have the assets properly titled, we have powers of attorney, and we've got all the updates done, then we can make sure that everything is private. But those things are essential to maintain privacy. If you want more clarity and confidence in your estate planning, check out our free estate planning guides and tools on our resources page. The link's in the description. So let's recap 5 of the biggest misunderstandings about living trust. The first one is thinking that the trust means that, hey, all the work is done. Second is believing that a trust avoids all taxes. Third is assuming that a will plus a trust combo always works. Remember, we have to get those things coordinated. Number 4 is forgetting to update your trust. I want you to meet with your estate planning attorney at least every 3 years to review everything. And the fifth thing is expecting automatic privacy. If you don't do the work, you won't get the privacy. We post up new videos about once a week, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so that you get a notification every time we post up a new video.